And thanks very much to our friend John Fund, who's been a longtime supporter and participant with the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference. And now I want to introduce another longtime friend of this organization that I believe that the first time our distinguished guest was present at PMA or PLC to participate was in 2001 when he was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from the Lehigh Valley. Of course, today he's our United States Senator. Here's a video greeting from our friend, Pat Toomey.
Good afternoon, I'm Senator Pat Toomey. For several years now, you have afforded me the opportunity to deliver the kickoff address for the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference. And we usually do that live from the ballroom at the Camp Hill Radisson. This year, of course, in many different respects, has been different. But I am grateful for the opportunity to be with you nevertheless. I hope that you and your families are healthy and well, and my sincere thanks to Lowman Henry and the PLC for giving me this opportunity once again. Next year, of course, I hope to be with you in person. Today, my remarks are going to focus on the issue that for many of us is on the front burner, the 2020 elections. President Trump versus Vice President Biden, and control of Congress, especially the Senate. So we're just over a month away from Election Day 2020, and every election is always described as the most consequential election ever. Let me tell you why this one really is. First of all, a race for the White House and control of the Senate certainly looks like a toss-up. A clean sweep for the Democrats, should that occur, would be absolutely devastating for the Republic in a way that's much more dramatic than the way clean sweeps have affected us in the past. Much different than 2008 when Democrats swept Congress and the White House. Oh, sure, they implemented plenty of bad policies after that 2008 election. We'll never forget Obamacare, the damage that did to health care, Dodd-Frank, destroying the community banking sector of our economy. But their bad policies were just that. They were policies. They were not attempting to make structural societal changes to America and to fundamentally change the rules of American politics. Not in 2008. 2020, that is very much on their agenda. Oh, they've still got their wish list of all of their terrible economic and other policies. They'll gut the tax reform that gave us the strongest economy of my lifetime. Joe Biden has already declared that that'll be a high priority. They'll massively overregulate the economy and stifle economic growth. That is what they do. That's what they believe in. They'll advance the Green New Deal because the left wing of their party is going to demand it. And with it, they'll ban fracking and stifle all kinds of fossil fuels, massively driving up the cost of energy. I guess Kamala Harris, a Green New Deal co-sponsor, wants to bring California-style blackouts to the rest of the country. Well, that's what she would like to do. And of course, she supports eliminating private health insurance. She's been very clear about that. Open borders, bail reform, which is to say no bail, welfare and free health care for illegal immigrants. We know the litany, it's all true, and they have even more extreme positions now than ever before. But as I said, if they sweep, the Democrats are much more ambitious than just passing even more extreme versions of their liberal policy agenda. They want to make structural and societal changes that will run very, very deep. Structural changes, I mean changing the rules and changing our politics in a way that is designed to give them permanent electoral majorities. That's why they want D.C. to be a state, and now they're insisting Puerto Rico as well. It's not about the statehood of those places. It's about 4 Democrat senators being added to the United States Senate, making it much more difficult for Republicans to ever achieve a majority. They want to completely subvert the Electoral College, and they're very creative about ways to do that. And that's because they know that the Electoral College is a mechanism that gives all Americans some say in our presidency. They want to stifle that so that the 2 coasts can completely dominate control of the presidency. They want to expand the size of the Supreme Court. They want to grow that court. They can do it with a simple legislation, pack it with liberals that will simply be an extension of their policy wish list rather than play the limited role that judges are supposed to play in our society. They'll usurp state election laws and do things like demanding universal unsolicited mail-in voting ballots, ballot harvesting. They'll have coerced unionization of the private sector workforce so that there'll be more dues going to their campaign efforts. And they'll do all of these things legislatively by beginning the process with an elimination of the filibuster. Right? The filibuster has been the tool for decades, for centuries, that's required bipartisan consensus in the United States Senate to get things done. They're not going to tolerate continuing to have a filibuster that would give a Republican minority in this scenario any ability to have any say. You know, in 2005, Barack Obama was a United States Senator, and he gave a passionate defense of the filibuster for the sake of the Republic and the sake of the Senate. It was essential that we keep the filibuster. In 2020, Barack Obama describes the filibuster as a racist relic of Jim Crow. Now, why does he do that? He's doing that to give cover, more than give cover, to make it a requirement that Democratic senators, if given the opportunity, eliminate Jim Crow. I mean, eliminate the filibuster. After all, how could they tolerate a racist rule? And with that gone, they can do whatever they want. Of course, if they can't do things with legislation, they'll misuse executive power. We have a governor who has shown the kind of damage that an unchecked executive can do if he has a complicit Supreme Court in place, and my Democratic colleagues will make sure of that. But their goal is not just these policies, not just this structural change, but also societal changes. They mean to fundamentally change America. Their mission is a rejection of what America has always been. And the far left has really transformed the Democratic Party. The center of the Democratic Party, including the mainstream media, has just capitulated to a self-admitted socialist from Vermont and his radical left followers. There are a lot of examples, but one of the most prominent recent examples is the continuous denigrating of the police. You know, when a police officer breaks the law, I don't think anybody in this room would disagree. They should face the consequences if they broke the law. But it's a fact that the overwhelming majority of police officers follow the law. They enforce the law. They're selfless public servants who risk their lives to protect all of us. And yet the left, and increasingly the Democratic Party, backs efforts like defunding the police. And that's radical. And it means exactly what it says. AOC was very helpful in explaining this. As she said, defunding the police means defunding the police. And Democrat leaders, you've watched as they've remained quiet as rioters chant, "I hope they die," while two doctors were tending to the Los Angeles County sheriffs who were shot in a completely unprovoked ambush. And here in Pennsylvania, we have Democratic leaders who can't bring themselves to express support for a Lancaster County officer who was forced to use lethal force against a criminal attempting to stab him with a huge carving knife. And these same Democratic leaders, of course, can't denounce the rioters who then damaged and destroyed property in the city of Lancaster. Mainstream Democrats are also adopting core issues that are at the heart of the radical left movement. You know, one of the core beliefs is the erosion, and for some even the elimination of private property. Now this is a central idea of Marxism, right? But there's a new book that's getting all kinds of praise on the left. It's titled In Defense of Looting. Looting! The premise of the book is that it justifies destroying the life's work of a business owner because in the process, through the looting, you redistribute the wealth of an unequal society. Talk about refusing to hold rioters accountable for their behavior. This celebrates the rioting. Of course, we saw the Democrat convention None of the speakers could bring themselves once to condemn the rioters at all. Kamala Harris, in fact, encouraged her supporters to post bail for rioters and arsonists in Minneapolis. And this isn't just happening with officials in Portland and Seattle. It's happened in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And of course, it goes beyond this violence we're seeing on the streets. There's a long-running, increasing attack on the nuclear family. Here's a quote for you. "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable." You know where that comes from? That's the website of the Black Lives Matter movement. That's from their own website. Because they believe, like good Marxists, that it's the government's job to raise kids and provide for families, not individuals' role. We see this in schools. So public schools, in many cases, are refusing to open, or if they are opening, it's on a very limited basis. And so parents, being creative and really prioritizing the education for their kids, have tried to find creative ways to make sure their kids get an education. One of the tools they've developed are these learning pods where a handful of parents will get together and they'll take turns maybe, or they'll find someone who can help their several kids. Well, the New York Times has published an op-ed from one of the leading left learning specialists who condemns these pods because they can perpetuate racial inequities rooted in white supremacy. And the Denver Public School Board, deeply concerned about the pod's long-term negative implications for public education and social justice. Of course, we know that a central part of the mission of the radical left and the Democratic Party now is a dramatic expansion of the welfare state. They're increasingly embracing the idea of universal income, so everybody gets a check whether or not they are willing to work. The rest of us have to simply send money to everyone. Housing, of course, has to be free. We have encampments in cities across the country of people who simply take over public areas and refuse to leave unless the government gives them money or free housing. Of course, it's increasingly universal among these Democrats that college has to be free and student loans has to be paid for by taxpayers. Taxpayers just come in and foot the bill for pretty much everyone. You have mob justice has taken over. The premise here is that individuals lack agency. Every destiny in life is a result of race. All institutions are corrupt because they're built upon racial identity. It's a totalitarian logic. It makes no sense. The idea that guilt or innocence is a function of the color of your skin, it is completely anathema to all that America and Americans believe in. And it dismisses any idea of reform because these institutions are all supposedly driven by race. The University of Chicago English department is now only accepting grad students who will work in and with Black studies. Of course, cancel culture is one of the extreme examples of just how radical the left has become. It's all over college campuses. If you fail to conform to the mob's definition of justice and truth, then you get erased from public debate discourse. Recently, YouTube banned an interview on COVID by Dr. Scott Atlas because he didn't agree with all the talking points of the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization, which has gotten it wrong with respect to the COVID crisis repeatedly. It's not acceptable for a scientist to have a different opinion. That's the madness that is taking over. And this radical left agenda runs completely contrary to the ideals on which America was founded. The idea of individual, including economic freedom, personal responsibility, a recognition of the amazing and fantastic social and political and economic accomplishments of Western civilization. This movement rejects all of those ideas. And this movement has taken over the Democratic Party and has become the antithesis of the American dream. Now, when presented with the question of which agenda he's going to follow, Vice President Biden will tell the media he doesn't support the radical agenda. And of course the media pretends that that's true. But the fact is, he has been co-opted by these movements, and we know it. And they know, just like we all know, that Joe Biden will continue to be a follower of this radical left wing. The same people who will be running Joe Biden's White House were bailing out rioters a few months ago. And these are the reasons that we need to make sure that President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence are reelected. We need to make sure that Republicans retain the control of the Senate that we have today. And we need to take back a majority in the House. Making sure that we reelect President Trump and Republicans control Congress is absolutely essential. You know, it'll send a clear message from the American people to the Democratic Party that the American people are rejecting and discrediting this kind of totalitarianism that the left is trying to foist on the rest of us. So right now it looks to me like this is a toss-up race as to whether or not the president is reelected. Odds look to be about the same for control of Congress. The fact is, President Trump and Republicans need your help to get over the top. You have a sphere of influence. You have family and friends, co-workers, and others who know that you follow this, that you care a lot about your country, that you have a well-informed opinion. You need to share that with them and encourage them to vote, because we're at a crucial moment for our country. We really are. At a time like this, I'm reminded of the wisdom of the late, great Winston Churchill, who said about all of us, he said, you know, you can always count on the Americans to get it right after they've exhausted every other possible option. Well, as far as I'm concerned, we've exhausted the other options. We've got to get this right. Thank you all very much for attending this year's virtual PLC. God bless you and all your families, and God bless America.